AITA for refusing to apologize when my fiance's best friend insulted me in my own home. My name is Marcus, 32 years old, forensic accountant in Atlanta. Imagine a financial detective crossed with a surgeon. When companies cook their books or spouses hide assets, I am the one who digs up every dirty secret and presents it so clearly that even the worst individuals cannot escape. My specialty is asset tracing and financial reconstruction. I have exposed everything from Ponzi schemes to divorce fraud, helping clients recover millions of stolen dollars. This job requires patience, analysis, and an obsessive attention to detail. We document everything, we assume nothing, and we let the evidence tell the story. 4 years ago, I bought a 1920s craftsman bungalow in a gentrifying neighborhood of Atlanta for $210,000. A real construction site, the kind of house most people would run away from. Me, I saw dollar signs. The area was blowing up, real estate prices were skyrocketing, and this house had good bones under decades of neglect. I injected $58,000 and 3 years of my own sweat into it. Complete electrical overhaul, plumbing modernization, completely redone kitchen with quartz countertops, restoration of the original hardwood floors, HVAC system upgrade, and reconstruction of the master bathroom. Countless weekends were spent learning to lay tile, and countless evenings after 12-hour days were spent hand sanding molding. The garage became my workshop, complete with a table saw, miter saw, and a full electrical setup for real renovation work. When I was finished, I had a $450,000 plus house that looked like a fortress built with my own hands. That was when Elena entered my life. I met her at a networking event at the Emory University Business School about a year after the renovations were done. 28 years old, first-year MBA, brilliant and hungry for success. She had worked 3 years in marketing after her bachelor's degree, then realized she needed more leverage for the career she was aiming for. She was betting on herself with higher education. I respected that determination. The chemistry was immediate. She understood my analytical mind, and I was attracted to her ambition. Our conversations had depth, goals, and values. The kind of serious discussion that separates adults from students still trying to find themselves. She specialized in finance and said she wanted to understand how wealth really worked. When she confided in me that her student loans were stressing her out and she was considering a part-time job that would tank her grades, I took what seemed to me like an obvious decision. Focus on your studies, I told her. I will handle it. I started sending checks directly to the university bursar's office. $62,000 a year in tuition and fees. It was not a small amount, but I made a very good living and I thought we were building something together. Investing in her future was investing in our future. No. Famous last words. 8 months later, her 2005 Honda Civic started to die. It was burning oil. The transmission was slipping. A repair estimate of $3,200 for a car that was worth maybe $500. Rather than throwing money out the window, I took her to the Toyota dealership at the certified pre-owned lot. We chose a reliable 2021 Camry XSE, 28,000 miles on the odometer, leather interior, advanced safety package, $24,500 all-inclusive, title in my name. Insurance on my policy for simplicity. I will pay you back when I finish my studies and land a good job, she promised. I believed her. Better than that, I did not care. Partners handle business together. When her lease was up, moving in together was the logical step. She contributed what she could, about $700 a month for groceries and utilities, while I paid the mortgage, property taxes, insurance, and the majority of household expenses. I set up a joint checking account for shared expenses that I funded to the tune of $4,000 a month. Clear system, zero conflict on who paid what. I should have noticed the subtle shift in her language. Within 6 months, it was our house in front of friends, our car for errands. We are renovating the guest bathroom when I was doing 100% of the work and paying 100% of the bills. Couples talk like that, so I did not pay attention to it. But there was something in her tone. She mentioned casually to her friends how successful we were, how we were building an incredible life, how our financial planning was so solid. Never mind that this planning relied on my spreadsheets, and that this success came from my 60-hour weeks. In her mind, my victories were already half hers by simple association. But I am patient. I observe patterns before judging. You collect evidence, you analyze behaviors, and you let people reveal themselves. I did not know yet that Elena's college best friend was going to provide me with all the evidence I would ever need. His name was Julian, and he was going to teach me the most valuable lesson of my adult life. The difference between investing in someone and being manipulated. Julian Vance. Just typing his name makes me twitch. But in the beginning, I tried to be impartial. Elena's ride or die since college. The one who supposedly helped her rebuild herself after a dramatic breakup with some musician in her senior year. According to her, Julian was the hero who had restored her confidence and made her realize she deserved better. He presented himself as an art director and brand photographer. His website was full of gloomy photos taken in trendy cafes in Little 5 Points and listed exactly 3 paying clients. He drove a 2009 Range Rover that spent more time at the mechanic than on the road, rented a studio loft for $1,800 a month in West Midtown, and always seemed to be between 2 big projects. The first red flag should have been his reaction when Elena introduced us. Instead of normal politeness, Julian immediately assessed me as a threat, asking pointed questions about my work, my income potential, and my long-term vision for the relationship. He positioned himself as Elena's protective advisor, the one who would guide her away from men unworthy of her. What he lacked in success, he made up for with oversized audacity, especially his expert opinions on how Elena was settling for me. It started subtly. I would suggest going to dinner. Julian would recall that her ex cooked homemade gourmet meals. I planned a weekend in Savannah. Julian brought up their spontaneous road trip to Asheville back in college. I offered jewelry. Julian joked about how guys in suits express love compared to creatives. Every remark placed me in the role of the boring provider while he presented himself as the guardian of Elena's true self. He had known her longer, understood her deeper, and appreciated her authentic personality in a way a man obsessed with practical things like financial stability could never match. The worst part was that Elena drank up his words. She had settled comfortably into the lifestyle I provided her, but Julian whispered endlessly to her that this comfort was costing her soul. He was sowing poisonous seeds. You have changed lately. I miss the old Elena. Are you sure this is really what you want long-term? Her maid of honor, Chloe, was the other parasite. She was apparently convinced her role consisted of validating absolutely everything Elena felt. Elena complained about my busy schedule. Chloe agreed immediately. Yes, I was neglectful. Julian threw jabs at my corporate mentality. Chloe nodded as if he had just revealed a deep philosophical truth, and so on. They transformed perfectly ordinary couple problems into symptoms of a deep incompatibility that, conveniently, only they were capable of diagnosing. But what really started to make me angry was Julian's relationship with my money. His Range Rover was constantly broken down. And when I say constantly, I mean constantly. Air suspension, cooling system, transmission, electrical. Every 6 weeks, something failed on that British money pit. Every time, Julian called Elena in a panic about repair costs, explaining he risked losing clients if he did not have a car. Elena immediately transferred money from our joint account, an account I funded alone. $500 here, $800 there. Just until he gets back on his feet, she said. He will pay us back when that big project comes through. That big project never came through, by the way. Julian never paid back anything, but the emergencies continued. His rent seemed to be an optional obligation. At least 5 times in 10 months, Elena covered his shortfalls because he was between invoices or waiting for client payment with my money. In practice, I was funding the lifestyle of this parasite while he spent his days sabotaging my relationship. What made it all even worse was Julian's attitude regarding these loans. No gratitude, no acknowledgement of the fact that he was being saved by someone else's work. Just an arrogant expectation that Elena would fix his problems, followed by continuous criticism of my materialistic approach to life. Every time I brought up his behavior, the permanent financial crises, the disrespectful remarks, his obvious resentment of our success, Elena cut me off. He is my family, Marcus. He was there when my ex destroyed my confidence. You do not forget that. It is just Julian protecting me. He is going through a tough time. Successful people help others rise. But I noticed something else. My concerns were treated as trivialities. The petty complaints of someone who did not understand loyalty like she did. The conversation ended there. Nothing changed, and Julian continued to drain our account while poisoning Elena's mind about our relationship. Here is the reality. Julian was building a case against himself, transaction after transaction, remark after remark. He simply did not know he was soon going to be judged, and that this trial would arrive much faster than either of them imagined. The opportunity presented itself after the conclusion of the biggest case of my career. A major logistics firm had been falsifying their accounts for 3 years, hiding nearly $5 million in losses through accounting manipulations that would have made Enron proud. My analysis exposed the entire system and allowed our client to recover $3,200,000 in a settlement agreement. 6 months of 18-hour days living on energy drinks and takeout, becoming practically a ghost while I built an unassailable case. The breakthrough came when I discovered that the CFO had created phantom vendors to siphon cash while inflating revenue via fake invoices. It took me 4 months to trace every transaction, cross-reference bank statements, and build a timeline proving systematic fraud. Their legal team tried to discredit my work during depositions, but spreadsheets do not lie when you know how to read them. We crushed them, and my success bonus was substantial enough that I could finally enjoy the fruits of this hard work. So I decided to organize a celebration worthy of this milestone. Not a simple dinner, but a party marking a real achievement. I wanted to share it with people who mattered. Trey, my best friend since college who had helped me renovate the house. Kevin and Raj from my firm who had covered for me during the whole case. Sarah and Mike, our couple friends, the ones who understood why I had disappeared for months. Invite whoever you want, I told Elena. This is as much about us as the case. Her eyes lit up when I mentioned the party budget. She immediately went into luxury mode. Premium steaks from a boutique butcher shop, professional floral arrangements, top-shelf alcohol for the bar. Marcus, this is our moment to show people who we really are, she said. And that phrase, our moment, rang false. It was my professional victory, but in her mind, it was already a question of social status. Just the grocery list cost $1,200. She wanted specific Napa Valley wines to pair with each course, artisanal bread from that overpriced bakery in Buckhead, a selection of imported cheeses for appetizers. I watched her organize this celebration like a socialite hostess, not like someone honoring the professional success of her partner. I went along with it anyway. I spent the week prepping. Trey helped me set up sound and lighting. I designed a crazy menu: dry-aged ribeye, farmer's market vegetables, homemade pasta starter, a dessert buffet capable of feeding an army. Every detail was perfect: fresh flowers everywhere, good music, an atmosphere that makes you want to stay and really talk. The evening started exactly as I hoped. Good friends, incredible food, everyone relaxed and genuinely happy. For the first time in months, I was really relaxing and enjoying what I had earned. Kevin was telling stories about the opposing lawyers' faces when they saw our evidence. Sarah admired the renovations she had not seen yet. It was the kind of evening that reminds you why you work so hard. Then, 40 minutes after everyone had arrived, Julian arrived. He did not knock. He simply used Elena's key as if he were at home. No excuse for being late, no acknowledgement. It was my celebration. He looked over everything with that calculating gaze of someone assessing the value of your success, then headed straight for the bar where I had opened premium bottles specifically for the occasion. Nice setup, Marcus, he said, pouring himself a generous dose of expensive bourbon. It really shows what you can accomplish when you prioritize the right things. The way he said the right things, as if making money was morally questionable, made my jaw clench. But I stayed calm. Professional habit. Julian immediately launched into his usual act about the difference between what creates value and what extracts it. He presented himself as the tortured artist surrounded by sellouts, the authentic creative in a room full of people who sold their souls for a paycheck. My friends were shooting him looks capable of melting steel. But I remained silent and played the courteous host because there was one thing he did not understand about me. He was about to give me exactly everything I needed to end this permanently. As the evening went on, Julian became louder and more obnoxious. He had self-appointed himself social commentator, pontificating on everything from the commodification of creativity to the spiritual emptiness of the pursuit of financial success. Some are guided by passion, he declared, gesturing with my overpriced bourbon, gaze fixed on me. The need to create something meaningful. Others are more practical. He pronounced practical like a character flaw, as if choosing financial stability over artistic misery was proof of moral bankruptcy. Trey was glaring at him openly. Kevin had stopped pretending to listen. Raj seemed to be calculating the time needed to eject Julian from the property. But me, I stayed calm and let Julian keep digging. The best way to handle someone like him is to give him enough rope to hang himself. Then Julian turned to Elena with that falsely concerned expression that had become his trademark. I just want to make sure you are happy, Elena. I mean, Marcus is obviously an excellent provider. Theatrical pause to ensure everyone was listening. He is stable, reliable, and he takes good care of you. Every word was carefully chosen to condemn with a fake compliment. Here is where it got really interesting, Elena's reaction. Instead of putting him in his place or defending our relationship, she nodded thoughtfully as if Julian had just revealed a deep truth about her life choices. She had an expression I had never seen on her, not embarrassed by his lack of respect, but genuinely considering his words as relevant. Sarah stared at Elena with manifest disgust. Mike looked lost, as if he could not believe what he was seeing. My colleagues from the firm, guys who had seen me demolish hostile witnesses in depositions, watched the scene with professional curiosity, recognizing the setup of something spectacular. Julian must have interpreted her silence as encouragement because he decided to go for the throat. He looked me straight in the eyes, sketched that smug smile I had come to hate, and delivered what he thought was the killing blow. But let's be honest, we both know who could do much better than you. Dead silence. The only noise was the hum of the AC system in the background. My friends looked like they had witnessed a crime. Elena stared at her plate, not angry at Julian for insulting her fiancé, but embarrassed that he caused a scene. Even worse, I caught the slightest nod of approval before she looked down. Chloe was actually smiling as if Julian had just spoken a deep truth that absolutely needed to be said. That was the moment everything became crystal clear. This parasite had just disrespected me in my home at my own celebration, while drinking my premium liquor and living off my financial support. And my fiancée, the woman in whom I had invested 3 years of my life and over $200,000, was not embarrassed by what he said. She was embarrassed that he said it out loud. The mask of the loving partner fell. It was time for the forensic accountant to present his case. I put down my silverware, clasped my hands, and looked Julian straight in the eyes. When I spoke, my voice was calm, controlled, perfectly professional. The tone I use when I eviscerate hostile witnesses. That is a fascinating analysis, Julian. I am very interested in your methodology. What exactly does doing better look like? Be specific. He was not ready for that. He expected anger, an emotional reaction, a loss of control. Instead, I was interrogating him like the fraudster he was. Well, you know, someone more on her intellectual level. Someone creative who really understands her. I see. So the primary qualification would be being creative. And I imagine you see yourself fitting that description. Obviously, I understand Elena better than anyone. I pulled out my phone and opened my banking app. It was time to move to the evidence phase. Perfect. So you position yourself as the standard of what Elena deserves. Excellent. Let's examine your qualifications using real data rather than feelings. I felt all the attention in the room focus on me while I opened my statements. This was the moment I had subconsciously prepared for months, watching this parasite drain my resources while undermining my relationship. Elena's MBA tuition at Emory. $62,000 a year for 2 years. Paid directly to the bursar by me. $124,000 invested in her future career prospects. Her 2021 Toyota Camry. $24,500 at purchase. Reliable transport under warranty, title in my name. Insurance on my policy at $210 a month. His face was changing color, but I was not finished building my case. Household monthly expenses, averaging $4,800 over the last 18 months. Mortgage, property taxes, utilities, groceries, maintenance, fully funded by me. Joint account for discretionary spending. Monthly contribution of $4,000. Again, entirely from my income. I paused, letting the numbers imprint on minds while switching apps. Kevin nodded with appreciation. He recognized surgical precision when he saw it. Now, as the self-appointed expert on what Elena deserves, I am curious to know about your investment portfolio. What have you contributed to her future recently other than constantly disparaging mine? That is not, he started. I raised my hand. I have not finished presenting the evidence. Let's examine your financial relationship with my fiancée. Okay. I pulled out a small notebook. Yes, I kept records. And I turned to the relevant pages. Trey smiled because he knew exactly what was coming next. The forensic accountant was going full forensic. Repairs for your Range Rover documented via Venmo and our joint account. March 15th, $550, air suspension. April 3rd, for $180, cooling system. May 22nd, $715, transmission sensors. July 8th, $390, electrical diagnostic. August 19th, $640, alternator. That is $775 in auto repairs over 8 months, entirely funded by accounts that I manage. One of my friends snorted before turning it into a cough. Julian looked like he had been slapped, but I was not done yet. Then your rent emergencies. June shortfall, $500. August, $800. October, $450. November, $380. December, $625. That is an additional $2,755 in temporary loans that were never repaid. I closed the notebook and looked him straight in the eye. The room was so silent you could hear Sarah's glass touch the table. So let me verify that I understand your position correctly, Julian. You estimate that a man who invested over $200,000 in Elena's education, career prospects, and quality of life is inferior to a man who extracted $530 from her accounts without contributing anything tangible to her future success. Did I summarize your argument correctly? He looked like a witness who had just been pulverized during cross-examination, which was exactly the case. Raj struggled not to laugh. Mike shook his head. Even Chloe looked uncomfortable for the first time in the evening. But the true revelation came when I looked at Elena, genuinely curious about her reaction to this financial reality exposed without filter. Her face went through a whole range of emotions. She stood up with a jump so violent that the chair scraped the floor I had renovated by hand myself. Her entire body shook with rage. Not against Julian for disrespecting me in my home, but against me for defending myself with facts. I cannot believe you did that, hissed Elena, voice low and venomous. Are you serious? You completely humiliated him in front of everyone. I remained seated, calm. No, Elena. He humiliated himself. I simply presented documented evidence in response to his assessment of our relationship. This is not a court, Marcus. Her voice was rising, becoming shrill. This is supposed to be our house. The way she said our house, as if she had an equal right to something she never contributed a single dollar to, summarized everything that was wrong in the dynamic of our relationship. Our house, in which he just disrespected me, while drinking high-end alcohol that I paid for and profiting from the financial support I provide him. She heard nothing. She was locked into defending Julian as always. Except this time the mask of polite disagreement was completely gone. Julian is the only person who really sees me as I am. You just see me as a line in an investment spreadsheet. You think throwing money at everything makes you a hero? The irony escaped her completely. Furious at me for investing in her success while defending the man who was literally taking that money for himself. My friends watched this explosion with a mix of fascination and horror. Sarah looked disgusted. Trey was filming the whole scene with his phone. Smart man. Kevin was mentally taking notes as if witnessing evidence for a future case. That's enough, she screamed now, completely out of control. I am sick of your rational discussions, your logical analyses, and your way of managing everything. She turned to the room. My friends, my celebration, my success. As if addressing a jury supposed to take her side against my supposedly unreasonable behavior. This is exactly what I am talking about. With you, everything has to be a transaction. Everything is analyzed, categorized, archived like one of your files. I saw my friends exchanging looks. They were witnessing something I had never seen before. The real Elena. The one who appeared as soon as you questioned her choices and forced her to face reality. Julian stood behind her like a wounded puppy, uncomfortable but without backing down. He had lit the fire and was now content to let her burn everything down to defend his position. You want everything documented, justified, proven. You can't just accept that some things come down to feelings, to loyalty. And what, Elena? Taking money from my accounts to support someone who actively disrespects our relationship, is that loyalty? That is when she pulled the nuclear option. She drew herself up to her full height, looked around to make sure everyone was watching her, then launched her ultimatum with the absolute assurance of someone who has never faced real consequences. I am done with this nonsense. Marcus, you apologize to Julian right now for what you just did, or it is finished. Done for good. Her voice rose with every word, building a dramatic crescendo meant to force me to yield. She even smiled, pronouncing that final threat, convinced she had just played her MasterCard. The room held its breath. In that absolute silence, I lived the most clarifying moment of my entire adult life. She stood there at my celebration in my house, demanding that I apologize to the man who just insulted me while living off my financial support. But even more, she was so convinced of her own importance, so certain of her leverage over me that she thought she could issue an ultimatum and watch me collapse like a weak hand. She believed I needed her more than she needed me. She was completely wrong. The love I felt for her did not just content itself with dying in that instant. It was executed publicly before witnesses, replaced by something much colder and infinitely more dangerous. Total clarity on who she really was and on what our relationship had truly been. I looked at her with the detachment I reserve for hostile witnesses. I smiled. Not angry, not hurt, simply amused by someone who had just made a fundamental calculation error. So it is over, honey. I stood up calmly. I took my glass and went into the kitchen, leaving her standing in the silent dining room next to the man she had chosen to defend. Behind me, I heard her breath hitch, a sharp intake of air, shocked, as if she had just received a physical blow. For the first time in our entire relationship, someone had not done exactly what Elena wanted. Chairs scraping the floor and awkward murmurs followed me to the kitchen, but I did not turn around. I was already mentally organizing the next phase, because when someone shows you who they really are and forces you to choose between self-respect and submission, there is only one rational choice. She left with Julian that night. In her mind, she had just issued the ultimate challenge and was waiting for me to come crawling back with apologies and promises to never question her judgment again. She had no idea what was waiting for her. For 3 weeks, I went into total ghost mode. No calls, no messages, no response to voicemails that started confident and authoritative, then became more and more panicked as the days went by. But I was not sulking. I was not drowning in self-pity. I was working with the precision that made me someone formidable in my trade. The first weekend, I packed absolutely all of Elena's belongings. Without anger, without a spirit of vengeance, just efficiently, like closing a file. Clothes, books, toiletries, photos, decorative objects, kitchen utensils. Everything was placed in boxes clearly labeled, stacked neatly in the guest room, and photographed for documentation purposes. Trey came by on Saturday to help me change the locks and reset the security codes. $380 for 2 hours. The best money I ever spent. While the locksmith worked, I started making calls that would fundamentally change Elena's trajectory. Call number 1, Emory University bursar. I explained that due to personal circumstances, I would no longer be paying Elena's tuition effective immediately. The spring semester payment, $31,000, was due in 18 days. They noted the change and specified that non-payment would result in automatic withdrawal and an academic hold. Call number 2, the managing partner of my firm. I explained the conflict of interest and requested Elena's removal from the summer internship program. The position at $32 an hour with the possibility of full-time hiring was reassigned within 48 hours. Call number 3, the insurance company. I immediately removed Elena from my auto policy. This would not affect her driving the Toyota yet, but would seriously complicate her life when she tried to get new coverage. Last call, the credit card company. Elena was removed as an authorized user, and I requested immediate deactivation of physical cards. I also contacted my lawyer to draft formal documents ending our cohabitation agreement and clearly establishing ownership of all jointly held assets. Every transaction, every payment, every investment had to be officially recorded in case of legal contest. Then I drafted a single message. Request for return of the engagement ring within 10 calendar days, followed by a formal letter sent via certified mail, because documentation is essential when you dismantle someone's lifestyle. Finally, I repossessed my Toyota Camry. Title in my name, payments from my account. Elena was no longer insured. I found it in the parking lot of Julian's loft building and had it towed to my driveway. Perfectly legal, totally justified. But Elena did not go silently. The voicemails started from the second day. I kept them all as potential evidence. Day 2. Marcus, this is ridiculous. You are acting like a child. Call me back so we can settle this like adults. Day 4. You cannot just steal my car. That is my car. I have obligations. Call me immediately. Day 7. Marcus. The bursar called me. There must be a mistake. They say my tuition payment was canceled. Call me right away. Day 10. This is madness. You are destroying my life for nothing. For nothing. Call me or I am coming to your house. Day 12. Please, Marcus, I know you are hurt, but we can fix this. I know you love me. Do not throw away 3 years for a stupid argument. Day 16. I am coming to get my stuff. You cannot hold it hostage. The shift from arrogant demands to desperate bargaining was worthy of a textbook. I had already seen it cornering financial fraudsters. First denial, then anger, then panic when reality sets in. Every dollar I had spent on Elena relied on our partnership and our shared future. She had reduced that partnership to crumbs, so the financial support stopped. Simple cause and effect. But she had lived her whole adult life in a world where consequences happened to other people. She was going to learn that was no longer the case. Exactly 3 weeks after the dinner, my security system alerted me to a presence at the front door. I opened the video feed. She was there. Elena looked exhausted and panicked while her key refused to work in the new lock. She rang the bell. I took my time before answering because I wanted her to fully feel what "it is over" really meant. I opened the door, keeping the security chain in place. She looked terrible. The arrogant anger had given way to despair and several nights of bad sleep. But under the panic, I still saw that familiarity burning in her eyes. Marcus, we need to talk. No, we really have nothing to say to each other. You made your choice 3 weeks ago. You demanded that I apologize to your friend or that we end our engagement. I chose to end it. The conversation is over. You cannot throw 3 years in the trash for a single argument. It was not an argument. You gave me an ultimatum. I accepted your conditions. That is it. Done. I saw the panic settle in when she understood I was not bluffing and that I was not playing a game to get her attention. It was real, definitive. But school, the internship, everything we planned. So, spring semester fees were due 3 days ago. I imagine you and Julian found alternative financing since he is so much better for you. The color left her face. You did not pay them. Why would I have done that? You ended our engagement. My investment in your future stopped with it. Marcus, you cannot do this to me. I did not do anything to you. I am simply no longer doing things for you. There is a difference. You made a choice. Choices have consequences. You are about to discover what they look like. I started to close the door, but she wedged her foot in the opening. And my things. Packed and ready to be picked up. Coordinate with Trey to get them. His number has not changed. Do not contact me directly anymore. That is when she completely lost what little composure she had left. She started screaming, not crying, screaming with pure rage. This is madness. You are destroying my life because your ego was hurt. I opened the door a little more and looked at her calmly. She was spiraling, and I wanted to see how far she would go. You think you can erase me like I am nothing? Like 3 years counted for nothing? I deserve better than that. You are absolutely right, I replied softly. You deserve Julian. That is when she became uncontrollable, screaming obscenities loud enough for the whole neighborhood to hear. She tried to shove me to get into the house, stumbling when I stepped back. This is my house too. I live here. You lived here. Past tense. You never owned anything here. You never paid for anything here, and you lost your right to be here the day you chose Julian over me. She completely collapsed, not in sadness, but in the arrogant rage of someone who has never been denied anything. I will sue you. I will get a lawyer. I will take everything from you. I burst out laughing, which made her explode even more. With what money? Sue me? For what? Ending financial support after you ended our engagement? Good luck finding a lawyer willing to take that case. She tried one last time to force entry before giving up and leaving furiously toward her Uber. But it was not over. Over the next 6 weeks, she tried everything. She sent mutual friends to reason with me, explaining I was destroying an innocent woman's future. She had Chloe call in tears to tell me I was cruel and vindictive. She even had Julian call. Julian to explain to me that I was unreasonable, that Elena had made a mistake but did not deserve this. She showed up twice at my office, both times escorted out by security with an incident report to back it up. She tried to follow me in the parking lot until I called the police. Too bad for her. Every escalation only worsened her situation. The restraining order was granted without difficulty after I presented full documentation of her pattern of harassment. But the real destruction was just beginning, and it was entirely of her own making. Elena had to withdraw from Emory 4 months before getting her MBA. It turns out Julian's photo business could not generate $31,000 overnight. Shocking. The student debt, it stayed. $85,000 accumulated over 2 years plus interest. She ended up without a degree, without professional prospects requiring an MBA, and with a 3-year hole in her resume. The internship I had organized, usually leading to $110,000 offers, was awarded to another candidate who earns a very good living today and is building a solid career. Elena had to move in with Julian, unable to make it alone financially. But getting everything you think you want sometimes carries unexpected costs. Julian had spent years presenting himself as the romantic and creative alternative to me, the boring and pragmatic one. He found himself stuck with a bitter and angry woman who blamed him daily for destroying her future while demanding from him the financial stability he had spent years despising. But I was not done with Julian. When you are a forensic accountant and you have watched someone drain your accounts for over a year, you notice patterns. Let's say our hero had very interesting patterns. For all his emergency repairs and rent payments, Julian always insisted on cash. He said he did not trust banks, preferring to keep it simple. In reality, he preferred to keep transactions off official records. So I did what I do professionally. I followed the money trail. Julian was running his photography business entirely under the table for years. No business license, no tax declaration, no legal structure, just cash payments that never appeared on his returns. Over 4 years, that represented a substantial amount of undeclared income. I documented everything meticulously. Every verifiable cash transaction, every business expense claimed without a legal entity, and every rent payment suggesting income higher than declared. Then I compiled a complete file for the IRS and the Georgia Department of Revenue. Oops. I also discovered that his lease stipulated single occupancy only. No guests for more than 14 consecutive nights. The fact that Elena moved in permanently violated the lease and could lead to immediate eviction. The beauty of going after someone like Julian is that his whole lifestyle relies on shortcuts and avoiding legitimate responsibilities. When real consequences arrive, everything collapses. The IRS tax audit hit Julian first. When you have defrauded the tax man while living above your declared means, the state takes it personally. Julian found himself facing back taxes, penalties, and interest exceeding $140,000, more than his legitimate annual income. His landlord launched eviction proceedings for lease violation. He tried to lie, but I had provided photographic evidence of Elena's permanent residence. Several photography clients received letters from the state regarding investigations into undeclared activities. Word spread quickly that hiring Julian could lead to legal trouble. In 10 weeks, he lost his loft apartment and the majority of his clientele, and found himself crushed under impossible tax debt. Supporting a furious ex-MBA student who reminded him daily that he had destroyed her future suddenly became much less seductive. He abandoned Elena 2 weeks before the eviction. He disappeared while she was at her new job in retail, leaving household debts and a note talking about needing to take a step back. The engagement ring was never returned voluntarily. I took it to small claims court in Fulton County, won the case, and garnished his wages until full repayment of the ring, $5,200 with interest. It took 11 months, but I recovered every cent. 4 months after the end of the garnishment, A lawyer contacted me regarding a complaint from Elena for financial abuse and emotional distress. The case was dropped after review of my documentation and the recording of her meltdown at my door. It turns out that voluntary financial support in a relationship creates no legal obligation and that you cannot claim distress caused by consequences you demanded yourself. Today, from what I have heard through mutual friends, Elena works in store management and lives with roommates near the interstate. She still tells anyone who will listen that I am a controlling monster who used money to trap her and that Julian is a coward who abandoned her when she needed him most. Too bad. Julian moved back in with his parents in Birmingham and works at a corporate portrait studio for $18 an hour. They say he learned to file his taxes correctly, to avoid giving relationship advice, and to think twice before taking on someone who professionally investigates financial fraud. My friends still refer to that dinner. They call it the night Marcus went forensic. Trey even had it printed on a t-shirt. I did not do all that for revenge, even if I admit the result was satisfying. I did it out of self-respect and a requirement for basic accountability. That is what finished really means. Comment. Watching this unfold reminds us that true generosity should never come at the cost of your dignity. We often think love means giving everything we have, but there's a fine line between being supportive and losing yourself. Self-respect isn't about being cruel. It's about knowing when to stop pouring into a cup with a hole in the bottom. It takes immense courage to stand up for yourself when the people closest to you try to make you feel small. I hope this serves as a gentle reminder that you deserve relationships built on mutual appreciation and honest effort. Sometimes, the most powerful thing you can do is simply withdraw your energy from situations that no longer serve you. Remember, walking away from disrespect isn't an act of hate. It's an act of self-love. Protect your peace and never apologize for having standards. If you like the stories, don't forget to leave a comment and support the channel by subscribing. See you in the upcoming stories.